Welcome to R.A.C. Rally Report on the final day of the 2025 Roger Albert Clark Rally, brought to you by Viking Motorsport. Remember 2 years ago when that music, that sets us up nicely by the way for the final day of action, doesn't it, was downloaded by all of you on the way back from the R.A.C. rally? We need to do the same thing again. That wasn't my idea, that was the idea of some of you guys commenting on social media this week, but absolutely do it. Download Propaganda and Jeweled. Make sure you get the right version, and let's see if we can make the record label think, what on earth has happened since the 90s when that track was used on the Top Gear Rally Report over the R.A.C. rally. Let's see how many of you can be listening to Jeweled on the way to the office tomorrow morning with those rally blues kicking in a day later than usual. Talking of the 90s and the R.A.C. rally, when the snow and the ice hit on Saturday for the first day of our northern leg, and everybody was struggling and moaning about the snow and ice, not quite everybody was having their worst day of the week. Mad Mick Jones came through with Jane Nicholl alongside, and he just looked at me, he smiled and he said, "Paul, this is normal." And he threw me back to the 1993 R.A.C. rally, and it turns out that Mad Mick Jones wasn't the only competitor who we've enjoyed watching in action on the 2025 Roger Albert Clark rally who was back in action on the R.A.C. in 93, which gave us an idea. Let's go back to the 90s. In 1993, Juha Kankkunen would take victory on the Network Q R.A.C. rally, claiming the World Rally Championship title in the Toyota Celica in the snow and ice of Great Britain. Also battling the snow and ice, much like they would be 32 years later on this year's Roger Albert Clark rally, were a number of familiar faces. Mad Mick Jones will be earning his nickname in fine style, driving his Mitsubishi Galant. Mark Higgins would do battle in an Astra GSI as a young Mark McCulloch stood stateside, wondering what if. And Johnny Milner will be sporting a whale tail on the boot of his famous red Escort Cosworth. Jeremy Easton was also driving an Escort Cosworth on the 93 R.A.C. And while other names like Tony Jardine and Bob Stocko also featured 32 years ago, there was one man driving a time machine. Andy Madge driving the same Toyota Corolla AE86 that he has campaigned ever since, including on this year's Roger Albert Clark. Coming up later in the show, we will have some of your Roger Albert Clark adventures with the photos you've been sending us all week, which we have absolutely loved. It'll be a special extended version, which means you get to listen to more of that music, which is great news, so thank you for that. Now, there have been, as there always are on the Roger Albert Clark rally, plenty of cars to get tongues wagging and get us all talking about rally cars again. And it wasn't just the Lancia Stratos and the Triumph TR7 V8 that captured your imagination on this year's R.A.C. rally. We had the Volvo 242 and 262, which I think could just start a new chapter in British historic rallying after what we've seen from our Scandinavian friends this week. We also had that glorious Peugeot 306 Maxi, although it didn't do the whole rally. We certainly enjoyed hearing and seeing it out when it was in action, and I hope to see that again very soon. But there have been a number of cars on this year's R.A.C. rally that have really inspired us. The variety seems to have been better than ever, and we want to know what your favourite is. So let us know in the comments. Vote for your favourite rally car on this year's R.A.C. rally, and we'll share a special selection of clips of the top 3 later in the week. Coming up on this final R.A.C. Rally Report show brought to you by Viking Motorsport, highlights of the action from the final day of the Roger Albert Clark rally, including those winning celebrations after the biggest stage in UK rallying. But first, somehow Colin Heppenstall and his team have managed to rekindle with the Roger Albert Clark rally some of the elements of the rally which inspired this epic event. And one of those is the management vehicles. Chase cars, as we once affectionately knew them. They've been outlawed on UK rallies for a long time now, but with this being a 5-day rally, they are needed practically to help the crews nurse the cars through 5 days of competition and the long mileage we have on this event. But there's something a little bit more poetic to management service, and we caught up with the team from Owens Fabrication with Joe White, who has travelled all the way from San Francisco for moments like these. One of the great things about the Roger Robert Clark Rally is that we have management service back, so the cars can be met by the crews en route to the next stage, en route to service in case there's an issue that they need to sort out quicker. If there's a long road section, and there are quite a few long road sections on this, around 1,000 road miles, including that transit section from Wales up to Scotland. And we know that some crews did opt to drive the cars on that road section, let's not forget that. But here you can see Joe White's crew just having a look at the car. We've spoken to them and there aren't any issues that have been reported on the road section, so it's just a quick check over, check the crew as much as the car. But it's just one of those parts of rallying that we've lost now, understandably, with roads being busier and with rallies happening all over the country. It's a very difficult thing to sort out because there isn't a lot of room to do this. But with this being a rally that covers 3 countries, it means that the management services are more spread out, so the issues don't crop up, and there's plenty of space and plenty of lay-bys and minor roads for the crews to pull up, like we've got here with the Owens fabrication team, just to check the cars over. But isn't it a fab sight? I mean, you go down this road and there are a number of different crews all servicing, checking the cars over, some doing quite big pieces of work. There were gearboxes being changed yesterday on the first of the Northern English legs. I'll just grab a quick word with Joe. Joe, we're being full rally nerds here because we just love that management service is back on this event, and we've been waiting here with your crew for you to come in. No issues to report, but it's a quick check over, isn't it?
Quick check over. You know, there's little issues. It's a small car. It's a little bit rough, but these are the best in the world. They're unreal. You know, they're Welsh and Irish, and what can you say? You know, without them, you wouldn't be able to keep going. So there's always little issues, but you manage them and you get out to the end and the boys have it fixed right away and keep going.
It must be a lovely, comforting feeling knowing that you don't have to wait to service to sort something out.
No stress whatsoever. They know this car like the back of their hands, so once you come out, if there is a little issue, they're straight to the point and they have it sorted. So you never have to stress, just keep moving forward and keep making progress, and that's the key.
It's one of the elements that we love about the Roger Robert Clark, and as you heard from Joe there, who's come all the way from San Francisco to do this rally, he's quite enjoying the fact that he can call his service crew and meet them at the end of the stage as well. So many things to love about the Roger Robert Clark Rally. That is just one of them. How are those music downloads going? Don't forget, we want a spike in downloads of Propaganda and Duelled after this rally. We want the record label to be wondering what on earth has happened, just like we all have for the last 5 days. The Tuesday Rally Blues are going to be bad tomorrow, so at least make sure you're listening to some proper music on the way to the office, won't you? Now, the final day of the Roger Albert Clark Rally has, as always, thrown up plenty of drama, plenty of last-minute bitter disappointment, and plenty of action on the stages. Here's how we arrived back at Carlisle Airport for the finish of the Roger Albert Clark 2025. As the 2025 Roger Albert Clark Rally drew to a close, it would be Arshan Price and Dale Furness celebrating with a long-awaited victory. No longer the bridesmaids. They tried for a number of years. Hand had been close, but this weekend the trophy would be theirs. Paul Barrett and Gordon Noble were another pair who had tried to win this event on a number of occasions. There was frustration. This year it wasn't to be, but they had put on one hell of a show. Second place on an event like this with the competition on the entry was a massive achievement. Greg McKnight and Harry Marchbank just wanted a top 10. It would end up being a podium. A fantastic end to the event for the Open Rally pairing as they secure the Open Rally victory and the final step on the overall podium. And despite a valiant effort, Matt Edwards and Sean Williams were not able to get on to that podium despite putting in the fastest final stage time. A few issues, including that puncture in Wales, had not helped the cause. West Wales' Dyfrig James and Emyr Jones had been consistent all week. That would see them finishing with 5th place overall. Not their best result here, but given the competition, one that they would cherish. And a big push would ensure Dan Mennell and John Roberts end the event in 6th overall. They would be happy with that result after a long and tricky week of rallying, but one in which they had not stopped smiling. Despite being one of the most entertaining crews this week, Mark Higgins and Carl Williamson would have an off on the start of this last day, seeing them in a ditch and losing a handful of minutes. It didn't affect their overall position, not really. But 7th overall was a great finish and a strong showing for the David Appleby TR7 V8 package. Just behind the British Leyland pair will be the escort of Jason Pritchard and Phil Clark. They never take a result for granted, and after a tricky week, they would be happy to come away with a finish and a top 10 in 8th overall. One of the drives of the event, though, and one that will have people talking for some time, was the Volvo of Arne Radstrom and Kent-Ola Bjorklund. They didn't have a straightforward rally, not by any stretch of the imagination. A few issues to contend with and get over, but they still managed to walk away with a very emotional top 10 finish in 9th place, having changed British historic rallying forever. And rounding out the top 10 would be the spectator favourite Lightning McQueen car of Tom Walster and Will Atkins. A strong finish for the pair on the 2025 event. Ka-chow! Oshan, you got us emotional on that finish at the end of the stage. You've had a chance to drive back here and reflect on things a little.
Jesus, yeah, sun come down, we're coming back there. No, we've had a mega week. A lot of prep gone into it, like we were saying. But no, it's just been a massive relief, and as you can see, it's been so long in the making, and there's so many people that sort of helped, and a lot of moving parts behind the scenes, and a lot of people that aren't here, and not just the sponsors you see and the team, but it's just a massive effort to get it done, and to finally get it done, and to lead for so long as well, and the margin at the end, we couldn't ask for any more.
Well, we've heard many words from our crews to describe this last 5 days of the 2025 Roger Albert Clark. I'm not sure any of them quite do it. We've gone back in time. We have made a few new chapters for British rallying, I think, this week. And whatever else happens, we are going to be talking about what happened here across England, Wales and Scotland for a long time to come. Thank you for joining us this week for our live coverage brought to you by Viking Motorsport. That's it for our final R.A.C. Rally Report.